Uh, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the second week of Island Box. We are tasting this little number today, 2023 Clos Fornelli Rouge Corsica or Corse is what we're tasting today. A lot of many French-sounding words in there. Probably butchering that. So if anybody is offended by that, I apologize. But yeah, as you know, my French pronunciation is horrendous. Anyways, I don't really have a lot of announcements, except this is the last call for Case Club. So tomorrow at noon, I'm going to close the Case Club. So if any of you are planning or would like to participate in the Chilean box that we tasted last month, any of the wines from last month, I put on some really fun ones in there. One of them is actually a Basque white. I know it's not a Chilean wine, but I just tasted it. I happened to taste it last month, and it blew my mind. It is by far the best, the most quote unquote serious. I had no idea that white chocolate could get that serious again. It was one of those kind of like a perspective changing reference point setting kind of wine for me. So I thought it was worth putting on there. But anyway, there's some fun ones in there. So go check it out. Anyways, get your orders to me by noon tomorrow so I can close that up and get that all set up and ready to go. Besides that, I don't really have any announcements. This month, as you know, 6 Foot Wine Club is committed to donating 1% of its gross revenue to an organization whose mission statement aligns with our values. And this month, I have chosen Malaria Consortium. So if you want to learn more about what they do or donate alongside 6 Foot Wine Club, the link is right there. And all of that, and we'll talk more about that once we get to the last week of this month, where we are going to taste Quinquina, which is a fortified aromatized wine that's flavored by cinchona roots, which is what has quinine, which is the main flavoring component of tonic water, hence the Malaria Consortium. In case you're wondering why the hell I'm donating to Malaria Consortium this month, that's the reason. I mean, besides, it's a good organization to donate to. All right. Any questions? I don't really have much announcements. I assume that you don't have questions, but any questions about anything? Cool. In case you're just joining us, we're tasting this guy today. 2023 Clos Fornelli Rouge Corsica is what we're tasting today, or Corse is what we're tasting today. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have tasted Corsican wines, or are you familiar with the Corsican wines? Excellent. I'm not the only one. I'd be the first one to admit, in 10 plus years of my wine career, I've tasted maybe 2, if not 3, Corsican wines. So this is a big kind of a black hole for me as well. And it was super fun putting this box together, going through and tasting through all of that, learning more about the island and what's happening there, the history, kind of viticulture history as it's a cultural history. So yeah, well, cool. Then we can all learn this all together. Here we go. Let's start with the map, because we always do. All right, here's a map of France. All right, this should look pretty familiar. And in case you're wondering where Corsica is, maybe I should pull up map of. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up Google Maps. I'm going to show you where Corsica is. And all right, here you go. Sure. All right, let's start here. All right, so in case you're wondering where Corsica is, here's France, right? and it's this island. So it's pretty sizable. It's not I mean, it's not super big, like obviously smaller than Sicily, smaller than Sardinia, but it's right here. So it's closer to it is to Italy than it is to France, instead. And then it's right off the coast of Tuscany, essentially. Oh, no, Florence is right here. And then so it's about 90 kilometers west of Italy, 170 kilometers southeast of France from Marseille, and then 11 kilometers north of Sardinia. So very close to Sardinia, very close to Italy. Technically, it's a French island. Administratively speaking, it is a French island. But in terms of vinification traditions, just culturally as well, but particularly vinification, and viticultural history here is a lot more, and the grape varieties that are grown here are a lot more Italian than it is actually French. It's a lot more Italian in its origin. And none of that is well evidenced by two most grown varieties on the island. And by the way, all the pronunciation or the name of these grape varieties, they sound not necessarily French. Some Italian, sounds like there's some other language also thrown in there as well. But one of the, I'm going to put that actually in the chat box. The most two mostly grown varieties for the red is Niellucciu, which is Sangiovese, essentially. And then Vermentinu, which is Vermentino in Italian, but Vermentinu, they call it, they put a U in there here in Corsica. The rich cultural history here, actually, where I want to change back to the map. So here's France before we get into all of that. So it has this little ending at the end. As you can see, all the wine growing regions are on the coast because, as you can imagine, this is an island that kind of jut out of the ocean because of volcanic activity. So there's a huge peaks that kind of run through right in the middle of it, right here. And if you look a little more closely, these are all the different wine regions and how it's divided. So Bastia being the biggest city, and Ajaccio, which is another one on the left, on the west. But in the middle is a gigantic peak that almost tops out at 10,000 feet in elevation. So we're not talking about some small mountain here. There's quite a bit of a high peak that comes up right in the middle of the island. So all the people living here, as well as all the viticulture, really happens along the coast, right along the water. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of maritime influence that comes from just having so much being next to the ocean, essentially. We'll talk about Ajaccio in a second, but rich viticulture history dating back to 570 BC. It was settled here by Phocian. I don't really know how to pronounce that. Phocian, Phocaean, Phocian traders. It's basically modern day Turkey, but they were
Phoenician. Sorry, Phoenician.
But is that Phoenician? There's also Phoenicia, and then this is spelled differently than Phoenicia that I.
Is it? Sound like Phoenician. So.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But this is So there's Phoenicia that I know, but it's a different part of I guess modern day Turkey, which also Phoenicians were based out of there, Syria, Turkey, that whole area. But anyways, that they were ancient Ionian Greek city on the western coast of Anatolia. They were active wine growers, cultivating indigenous vines and cuttings brought from abroad. Then since then, the island has gone through many different kind of history in terms of coming under the rules of the city of Pisa in Tuscany, which makes sense in the early Middle Ages. Then the 13th century under that of the Republic of Genoa. So quite a bit of Italian influence, and that's probably why a lot of the indigenous varieties here are named after, or it's the Sangiovese and Vermentino that are grown here, and that they're named after the probably previous language that was spoken here. Then finally, in 1769, they ceded control of the island to the French. So it wasn't until really 1700s that the France got a hold of this island. So up until that point, it's mostly under different kingdoms of Italian kingdoms that have come here and then occupy the land. That same year, 1769, Napoleon Bonaparte was born in the Corsican city of Ajaccio, which is the part that I was telling you about here. So I did not know this, but Napoleon is Corsican, which I did not know until today, to a wine producing family. Fast forward to the 19th century, similar history as the rest of Europe, particularly France. Phylloxera wipes them out. We've talked about phylloxera in the past, but in case you're not familiar, it's a root louse disease that kind of wiped out 90+% of vineyards around the globe, particularly in Western Europe. It decimated the vineyards there. So it kind of wiped out the wine industry in the 19th century, Corsican wine industry. Then following the Algerian War of Independence, the French descendants who were born in Algeria during the French occupation, they massively immigrated to Corsica and then began new plantings. And that's kind of the beginning of the new, the wine industry that really got set up here in Corsica after phylloxera. During this time, there's so much planting happened by the Algerian immigrants or French descendants from Algeria that immigrated back into France or to Corsica. The number of vineyards increased fourfold here on the island from what I read. The overall quality was really poor due to the emphasis on quantity over quality. Then the French vine pooling scheme, we've talked about in the past, where the government issued a lot of subsidies to farmers to actually pull out a lot of these old vines, and then you focus on kind of limited yields, focus them to put the production on quality rather than quantity. A lot of that was really good. It was kind of beginning the birth of the AOC system, the appellation system, as well as the improving the quality of French wines. But the downside of all of that was a lot of these really old vine, a lot of old varieties were pulled out and then replaced with a lot of these kind of very popular international varieties that came from mainland, particularly to Corsica. So yeah, a lot of that just kind of killed off different characteristics and personalities of the island and making way for more of a homogeneous style of wines that you find, quite frankly, to this day. And in fact, Corsica is still known mostly for very kind of mass-produced tourist industry accommodating kind of rosés and white wines. Very kind of characterless rosés, whites, but as we're tasting today, to me, what are the true gems of Corsica is actually the red wines. Of all the wines that I've tasted through Corsica, of Corsican wines, were always the reds that kind of spoke out. But yeah, just know, kind of like Canary Islands, you kind of have to do your homework, kind of go seek out the right producers. But in general, if you just go to Canary Island and go to a beach resort and look at the wine list, same thing here. If you just go to Corsica on vacation and look at a wine list in a hotel or resort, you're most likely going to find some sort of really just kind of characterless personnel, just kind of a homogeneous rosés and whites, innocuous rosés and whites that you can find everywhere else. But you got to look deeper because you guys are all savvy, because you guys are all 6-foot wine club members. Anyways, Corsican wines really have gone through a bit of kind of awakening since then. So due to growers really started to focus on kind of indigenous varieties, historical varieties, kind of lifting the quality, putting a lot more focus on the quality over quantity, and they started farming really carefully. Here, we're going to talk about in a second, but the climate here is really Mediterranean. As you can imagine, it's in the Mediterranean Sea, which means it's dry. In the summertime, it's warm. There's a lot of winds that blow through the island. So organic farming is actually quite easy to do here. I wouldn't say easy, but it's much easier than most of other parts of the world. So a lot of people coming out of the kind of new modern day improvement in the cellar, a lot of producers went back to farming organically, biodynamically, and doing a lot more traditional farming. And there's a lot of different varieties. I mentioned the Niellucciu, which is a Sangiovese, Vermentinu, which is Vermentino, but there's also a lot of other ones here. And this one today is made from a variety called sciaccarellu. I'm gonna put that in the, oh, sorry, I realize I've just been in a share session here. Sciaccarellu is a variety called sciaccarellu. Oftentimes they are used as a blending grape variety for other varieties that are grown on the island, and oftentimes heavily kind of intervened, manipulated, and oftentimes really big and robust style of wines that are made with the sciaccarellu and mixed with Niellucciu and other things. But in this case today, we have 100% varietal bottling, which is pretty rare. And from, this is all self-proclaimed, but Fornelli, they actually proclaimed that they were the first one to bottle 100% varietal bottling of sciaccarellu on the island. But anyways, besides that, if you are curious, you should go check out some of the other varieties on the island. They're all quite fun to taste through. Biancu, Gentile. Also, some of these things are really hard to pronounce, so I'm gonna put that in the chat box, and then you can try it as well. So, so these are all names of different native varieties that grow on the island. So pretty fun stuff, and they're not really found. There's some of these things can be found on the main island, particularly in Italy. Like I mentioned, the Sangiovese Niellucciu, the Sangiovese that's found all through Tuscany, obviously, right, and Vermentino. But some of these other things are sciaccarellu is actually pretty much native to the island here, to Corsica. Corsica is a striking mountainous landscape, like I mentioned, with rugged peaks that top out at almost 9,000 feet. The soil here is dominated by poor, rocky granite, with a schist found in the northeast, as well as small pockets of limestone that are in the extreme northern end, as well as the southern end. So imagine all of that. You kind of have this island, right, with the peaks right in the middle, super tall. The western side of the island is oftentimes more popular or thought to have better vineyards on the western side. But the eastern side here, because the peak is so high here in the middle, oftentimes the shade comes in because as soon as the sun starts setting on the west, right, and then it shades out all the vineyards on the right. So despite all that really warm sun and the temperature of the Mediterranean Ocean, because the shade comes in and cools it off at night, the eastern side has more of a diurnal shift than the west coast, meaning there's a much more difference between a daytime temperature and a nighttime temperature. So oftentimes you have a kind of different characters that you find. The grapes from the west coast tend to be a little bit riper, and that's probably why people thought they were much better vineyards, that you get a lot more sunlight. But in the west coast, you get a lot more acidity and lift in the wine. So there's some of that difference, right? And then there's elevation that happens, all the wind that comes in, the sea that surrounds it. So all these different variations. It's essentially a combination of sun, stone, that on top of that granite, schist, limestone that are found in different pockets. It makes Corsica really a fun place to kind of explore. And I never really thought of it as just kind of like a really varied, terroir-driven kind of a place for wine. I've always heard good things about their red wine, particularly the sciaccarellu, but it wasn't until I started tasting it that I realized that there are actually all these different characters you can really find, whether it's in the west coast, east coast, or whether it's grown on granite, or in some of the limestone in the northern end or the southern end. These things all make a difference. So pretty fun area. If you like this kind of like a really sun-kissed, really Mediterranean influenced kind of a wine, I would highly recommend. This is probably a good place to kind of explore for wine. So let's talk about who makes this wine. Look at this woman. I mean, if I ever ran into her, I'd be like, hell yeah, I want to drink wine made by that woman. Clos Fornelli, her name is Jose Vanucci, and her husband Fabrice Colomer. They organically work 25 hectares of sciaccarellu, Niellucciu, Vermentinu, among with the other regional grape varieties. They grow every single one of them that I mentioned earlier that are in the chat box. But really what they're known for is a sciaccarellu, and Vermentino. But they're certified organic. Their vines grow on deep beds of decomposed slate, topsoil filled with a river cobble. By the way, they are on the east side of Corsica, right around here is where their vineyards are, and their winery. As the name may suggest, Vannucci, that doesn't sound very French, right? Jose Vannucci is every bit Italian as she's French from what I've read. And her English carries a bit of a British accent. She's kind of like a mix of all these different influences, kind of interesting mix, just like a Corsica's history and a viticulture history. Jose and her husband left their careers in engineering and business. She has a degree in agricultural engineering. Her husband has a degree in business. And in 2005, they decided to come back to Jose's roots and then take over their family vineyard here in eastern Corsica. Her grandparents only had a few rows of vines when back in the days, but then it was her father that really spent his life in this, particularly in the 1950s, propagating indigenous Corsican varieties, and then started planting them everywhere, planting very close to 25 hectares of their vineyards. And with a diploma in agriculture engineering, and then just a desire to come back to her childhood, she decided to come back, and they decided to cultivate and vinify her family vineyard under their own name. So up until they came back to make wines, her family were only growing grapes and selling them, but they were not making their own wines. And this is what the winery looks like. It is a converted hangar. So we're not talking about some really fancy, over the top, the factory-like setting. We're talking about very much of a really rustic kind of a traditional winemaking that happens. This is kind of inside of it. These are all cement tanks. In fact, these are where this wine is made. This is all cement fermented as well as a cement aged. So it actually grew up right there. This is actually the vineyard. This is actually the sciaccarellu old vines. As you can see, these are kind of alien arms growing out of field. I love these kind of bush vine trained, goblet trained old vines. They just look so cool to me. This looks like I don't know, something you'll find on some surface of different planet or something. Anyways, so what is this wine? This is 100% organically grown old vine sciaccarellu that you just saw. It is believed to be a parent. By the way, sciaccarellu is believed to be a parent grape of the Ligurian Tuscan wine grape called Nera. Given its history with both the Tuscans and the Genoa being the Italian region of Liguria, it makes sense why that this would be the parent grape of what we think of as Tuscan grape, which is Sangiovese. Sciaccarellu is oftentimes used for blending, like I mentioned. But yeah, this is the first time for me as well that I've had 100% varietal bottling of Sciaccarellu, and it's delicious. I'm quite actually pleased. This is very different from all the other bottlings of Corsican wines I've had. A lot of Corsican wines that I've had are much heavier, much more extracted, much riper, just taking advantage of all that sun and ripeness you can get on that island. But this one has that kind of lieutenant elegance to it, which I really, really enjoy. Couldn't find much more information besides like a technical information, but I do know that this is a native yeast, so spontaneous fermentation, nothing but just yeast that's from skins, aged in concrete vats, fermented and aged in concrete vats, not filtered, bottled unfiltered, unfined, with just a touch of sulfites right at bottling and no other point during fermentation is all the technical information that I have. So yeah, very, very much of like a kind of raw, honest kind of varietal. It's all about expression of the sciaccarellu as a grape variety is basically what this wine is all about. Any questions about any of that I just went over before we get to tasting the wine?
I guess the only question that I have is about that island. I mean, it is a pretty big island, so I'm curious, like, if there is a difference in, like, I don't know, weather or something based on like north or south or like east or west or something like that. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah. So I try to look up some different, like the patterns of like how it's different. I mean, the stylistically, how the wines are different depending on where it comes from and why. And from what I could find, the big thing was that west coast to east coast, which is that big shade, that kind of the mountain that shades out the east side.
Mountain shade, okay.
Yeah, as opposed to the west. And then two, really the soil type that changes and different pockets that you have. So most of it is granite, but you have this little pockets of slate and a limestone. So depending on where it's grown, there's that. And then the constant thing that I found throughout what I was researching is just the amount of wind that blows through Corsica. There are three different kind of a wind patterns apparently that kind of essentially batter the island from all sides. So all this wind that comes in that kind of keeps it cool. It's part of another reason why organic farming here is much easier here, because all that wind kind of keeps the vines dry and then pest control much easier. But in terms of climate-wise, it's more depends on either the west coast or whether you're on the west coast or the east coast, and then the elevation of the mountain. Any other questions? Cool. Let's taste the wine. Who wants to take the appearance? Come on.
Over there.
Oh,
We'll do it.
go ahead.
What now?
All right.
We can do it. Well, we can do it.
Can I turn my light on?
Yeah, turn the light. Actually, we need some more light. We're outside. And it's a little dark.
Yeah.
That'll help.
Take the appearance.
Clear?
Yeah, I'll call this wine clear for all intents and purposes. I can tell that this wine is not a
90%
filtered.
clear.
Yeah, exactly. I can tell this wine is not a filtered
Dark.
or fine
Yeah.
wine, but yeah.
It's dark out here, so yeah, it's kind of like yeah, probably intensity.
Color?
Medium plus.
Yeah, I don't have a great lighting myself. I can kind of see. Yeah,
I can see
I can
some
cut-
stuff through it, but I couldn't read
yeah, I
anything.
can see kind of some stuff, but not crazy. So I'll call this about medium as well. Medium intense color. Ooh, what do you got?
And color, I'd say ruby. Maybe?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think this is like textbook ruby to me.
Yeah. Got part of the dark aesthetic.
I mean, this may be my own like a power of suggestion or trick that my brain is playing on, or I'm playing on myself. But maybe I'm giving away some hints here too. Like there's some like a orange kind of like a thing going on here. This wine, orangey, citrusy kind of a thing, and like even in the color, I feel like I see some like an orange kind of hue. It's not just a pure ruby, but for all intents and purposes of this exam, because I'll call this ruby, but yeah, like I'm detecting some sort of like a orangey, fiery sun kind of a color on here as well. Any other observation?
No,
Nope.
Yeah, no deposit,
no,
no bubbles.
don't see
Nothing
any
else.
deposit.
Cool, cool. You get to pick the next person for the notes.
Sarah and Andrew already know they're up next.
Okay, we knew.
Alright. All right. It's good to know.
This wine is clean.
This wine is clean. This wine is sound. This wine smells delicious. Intensity.
I'd say a high end of medium, but like maybe not all the way into medium plus
Yeah.
for me.
I smell it like here, which is, yeah, it's like inch off the glass. So I would say like higher in the medium, lower in the medium plus, depending on your temperature of the wine, depending on how long it's been open, it probably change. But right now, I'll call this about medium, higher in the medium myself. Lower in the medium plus, higher in the medium. somewhere right in there. Aroma character. What do you smell?
I don't think Andrew can't smell anything, so I'm I'm on my own. But I don't think I'm not really getting anything floral.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, maybe you could convince me there's a little bit of like a rose petal, something like that, but yeah, it's not a hugely floral wine.
I don't really get green fruit, citrus, or stone or tropical fruit.
Yep.
I think I get more black fruit than red fruit.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, but some of both.
Yeah, I get a little bit of both. To me, there's actually more red fruit here than
Oh.
black fruit, but yeah,
Yeah,
but I
maybe.
do get some like brambly black fruit here as well. But name some of those fruit out. What are you getting?
Strawberry, cherry.
Blackberries, bramble, maybe plums.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all like, to me, there's a huge like a cranberry vibe here. Me, raspberry, strawberry, I think that's good. I think that red plum that you said is good. Like a plummy, kind of like a blackberry, bramble. I think that's a good call as well. But there's something very, again, going back to the citrus thing. I don't know why, but like to me, there's something very orangey about this wine. There's something like, I remember, and it's a little less so now, and because when I first tasted this, it was a little bit chiller than this. But I remember when I first smelled it, it immediately took me to, you know, that like that cranberry relish that you eat, not the cranberry, the jello,
The
but
can.
the actual relish, the can, but actual like a relish, where the orange like skins and the pith all like chopped in there. That
Yeah.
kind of orangey, cranberry, kind of a relish vibe. Like that's what I got out of this wine. I was like, holy shit, like that's crazy. Yeah, like kind of what
Yeah.
Charles was saying, like orange pith, sunny D, like there's something of that going on here in this wine for me. So like keep going back to this kind of a cranberry, orange peel, and like red fruit, but definitely some like the really ripe kind of like a brambly black fruit here is for sure. Any dried what's the character of the fruit?
Very fresh and ripe, not
Yeah, exactly.
dried or anything.
Yeah, really ripe, really fresh, but not like jammy, overripe, anything like that, but very fresh, really ripe. Again, in places like this, Mediterranean, right? Ton of sunlight, really warm. Ripening is not the issue. Ripening is not the challenge. In fact, if you ever got something green and underripe from a Mediterranean island, something went wrong during that vintage. Let's put it that way. Herbaceous, herbal, anything green, anything herbal, anything like that?
Maybe something herbaceous,
Call it out.
so that I could identify it.
There's chimney, and then again, this may be a trick of mine, or my brain is playing a trick here, or power suggestion. But in this island, there's just kind of wild herbs and shrubs and like juniper berry bushes and things like that grow everywhere on Corsica. And there's something like that here. There's something about like a wild herb, almost like the Garrigue character in the Rhone, which is that kind of wild thyme, lavender, rosemary, all those things that just kind of wildly grow everywhere in southern France along the Mediterranean coast. It's not quite Garrigue, it's not that lavendery or like thyme but like there's something like that. Like yeah, like what you were saying, that there's some sort of kind of a herby, like it's not a juniper berry, it's not there's no pine sol here, but there's some sort of like a savory herb thing going on here, for sure for me. Like kind of like maybe like a light scent of like thyme or rosemary or something like that. Anything else? Any spice? Any rockiness?
maybe some rockiness. I don't know. I'm not very good at unless it's like really obvious. I'm not very good at the stone.
Yeah. No, I think I do get a little bit of pepper on this thing as well, a little bit of spice, like middle turn or two of pepper, as well as there's definitely some rockiness here. I do definitely get some minerality. I do get some of that kind of like a wet stone, slatey kind of a thing. Again, maybe knowing that this wine was grown on slate is what gives me that. But yeah, there's something like a slatey, stony kind of thing going on. Not super minerally over the top, but yeah, I definitely get that. Any secondary, any tertiary?
No.
Yeah, this is still very fresh, living right here in the primary world. Excellent. You get to pick the next person for the palette.
Does anybody want to do it? There is no response. We gotta see who's on. Hold on. Switch our view. Charles, do you want to do it?
Sure.
All right, Charles.
This wine is dry. For me, acidity is medium plus.
Yeah, it's got a good acidity here, right?
It's kind of
this is
deceptive. It's like the acidity is there, but it's not. It's like a subtle medium plus.
Yeah, it's like
I
you
don't
don't.
know how that works, but it's a very subtle, highly acidic wine.
I mean, it's also because there's just so much fruit here, so much ripeness here, so like our brain thinks like, oh, it's gonna be sweet and all of that, but there's that solid, just acid background and backbone, which is awesome. So yeah, definitely medium plus acid. Tannin.
I might go low end of medium plus on tannin. It's like soft tannins, but it's got some grip.
You think it's that high in tannin? I mean, there's definitely some grip here.
I don't know. I'm between medium and medium plus, but it's like when I really get it in there, it's actually got a little more. I've been drinking it for a while, and it's like I didn't refrigerate it, so it's like 72 degrees. I don't know, but yeah, maybe medium's the right call. I mean, if you were in an exam, you could call medium. And
yeah, I'll probably call this I'll call this medium on an exam setting, but there's definitely some tannin there. It's unmistakably there, right? Like it's very fine grained, like almost like a chalk dusty kind of a tannin, but like it's coating everywhere on the top of my gum line. It's everywhere. So yeah, it's really nice. The fact that it's that kind of like soft, supple tannin, not like this chewy, rustic tannin. It's quite nice, even though it's definitely grippy. It's not in your face. It's not ripping my gum out. Alcohol.
I'd say I don't know. I'd say medium. I would almost expect it to be.
Yeah, of course.
Given all the fruit, I'd expect it to be like kind of a warm climate wine and higher, but it doesn't drink very heavy on the alcohol for me. I'd say like 13%.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna guess. I was gonna guess like 13. I mean, it's 13.5 maybe. 13.5. So yeah, little bit higher.
Wow, you're good at this.
I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Higher end of medium, right? 13.5, but still medium territory here. And kind of what Charles was saying is exactly right? Like what you would expect from places like this, when it's this warm, Mediterranean, the sugar development, the ripeness is not a problem. You would expect these wines to be really big and hot and punch in the face kind of style of wine. But what I love about this wine is that, again, with that medium plus acidity, the lift, the elegance, despite it coming from a very warm place, and then its alcohol being in a completely reasonable balance, is all part of what I love about this wine. Cool. video, and then body.
This wine is very delicious, so I'm out of wine. So I'm just fetching some more. One moment. Okay. I think the body's medium for me.
Yeah, I'll call this medium as well. Again, with a 13.5% alcohol, higher the alcohol gets, the wine's gonna feel heavy or like fuller, just because more glycol is gonna be present. So alcohol is at least medium, about 2% for sure. Moose, we don't have to talk about obviously. Flavor intensity.
I could be generous and give this a medium plus.
Yeah,
Flavor.
me too. Agreed. I mean, I'm like
I think
right on
it's-
the.
I don't think it's like a complex, like it's not like crazy complex, but it's a mouthful. So we give a medium plus.
Yeah, I mean, it's like same way I feel about the intensity of the nose. It's like right in that medium to medium plus. Being generous, we can definitely go to medium plus. I do think it is closer to. I would call this medium plus on the palate. I feel this more on the palate than on the nose, personally. But it may just be that my wine is opening up now. But yeah, definitely, I'm gonna call this medium plus on the palate. It's not a shy wine. All the flavors are popping. Do you confirm everything that Margaret and Kyler called out? Is there anything else that you were getting on the palate that you didn't smell?
So two things. So first of all, I feel like I'm getting like sometimes I think this there's like a wine and I'm like, there's something else. I don't know what it is. This is like there's something else wine. I can't quite put my finger on it. I think the orange pith is part of it, but there's something on the nose that I'm also getting on the palate that's like it's a non-fruit, non-floral flavor characteristic that I really can't put my finger on. I think maybe like there's like almost like a pencil lead type of thing on the nose, but that's not what I'm getting on the palate, and I just have no idea. So there's something else, and I can't quite figure it out. I love wines like that because I sit there like a moron trying to figure out what it is, and most of the time I never get there. But I think there's something else. So if anyone else knows what it is, you please tell me.
But you're not seeing it as like a minerality, like a.
It could be. I mean, there's minerality there for sure for me on the nose and the palate, but
Yeah, to
yeah,
me, this wine has a.
it's red fruit. It's definitely got a sort of tangy, like zesty brambly-ness to the fruit, which is nice, and it's almost kind of like some high tone
Yeah.
flavors to me, like kind of like I don't know, strawberry Jolly Rancher type of thing going on, almost not quite as not quite candy, but it's like very juicy and zesty and tangy. Because it's kind of a lively, zippy wine on the palate, and I like that.
Absolutely. It's got this kind of like a almost crunchiness is what I want to say. It's like it's not quite crunchy enough to call it crunchy, but like it's almost there. Like all the lift, all the brightness, all that kind of the poppiness is already there. But I get, I'm gonna go back and actually call some of this floral. I do think there's a little bit of floral thing going on here.
I mean, I agree. When I opened the wine, so my parents were here like watching the kids for a period of time, and I got home from work and I was like, I should open this for my dad. He's been hanging out with my 3-year-old for 2 hours. He deserves a glass of wine. And I opened it up and I turned around and I didn't even pour a glass at that point. And like, I definitely got a floral whiff that kind of like faded away, but it was rose petals, like kind of big time. And then that went away. I still think it's there, but I definitely got that. And I was like, man, this is very floral. And then I drank it and I was like, oh, it's actually not that floral, but something on the right on opening the bottle, I got a ton of floral.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call this hugely floral, but I definitely do get some flower here. And then it's a function of both the rose petal as well as going to that earlier, what it's telling you about kind of like that Gary-ish kind of like wild lavender, thyme, that kind of thing all combined. There's something very aromatic and expressive about this wine. And again, to me, there's this distinctive orange peel pith that like cranberry relish all over to me. like the red fruit, red berries with the orange zest, all that cranberry, tart strawberry, really ripe, little plum, some of that bramble kind of thrown in there as well. But to me, this is much more red fruit driven than it is black fruit. But the fruit here is really, really just super ripe, but not overripe, but it's like perfectly ripe and really fresh.
Yeah, it's like that Japanese strawberry. The expensive Japanese strawberry.
Yeah, I know. Definitely a ton of minerality here. They're just rocky, just like a mineral backbone here. I especially get it like right after fruit kind of runs over at the end, towards the end. I also get a little bit of salinity here, just like a touch of salt. If somebody just sprinkle a little bit of sea salt on top, I'll get that. So I can imagine like with strawberries with like a little sprinkle of sea salt, like things like that, cranberry relish with a little sea salt on top, things like that is what I get here. But that kind of balance between that really bright, ripe, almost crunchy kind of red berry and fruit on top, on the counterbalance by this kind of like a savory, that kind of wild thyme, rosemary, lavender, that kind of thing going on here, along with the minerality and saltiness. To me, that balance is what makes this really interesting and delicious. But overall, what I love about this wine is that it just like my body craves it, like my palate craves it, like it's just delicious that I just want to drink more and more of it. But there's enough layers here that you can go back and try to pick out like different layers and then see what else you're getting. And to me, those are the kind of wines I really enjoy drinking these days. Like the ones that if I don't want to think about it, I can just like pound and pound and it'd be delicious. But if I do want to sit down and think about it, there's something there that I can think about. And then this wine is exactly that. Okay, length. How long is the finish?
I give it medium plus.
Yeah.
It's
Still
actually
good.
it's well into medium plus.
Yeah. Mine is still good. Yeah. Medium plus for sure.
Like
All right.
I feel like if this were a more cerebral wine, somebody might almost call it long, but
Yeah.
it's a good long finish. It sticks around.
Yeah. For sure.
Conclusions. I mean, I think we called like low end of mid plus aroma intensity, medium plus flavor intensity, mostly primary flavors, but good long finish. I'll give this very good.
Yeah, exactly. All around balance, medium plus intensity, medium plus like medium, high end of medium complexity, and then medium plus length. So all around, we call this very good. Would you age this?
I mean, if I had a case of it, I could imagine not drink, like if the consumption rate were not outpacing the supply, I think you could probably age it. It's got enough, in my mind, it's got enough structure and acidity that you could age it. I don't actually know that I'd want to, but I think you could. I think you could age it. I'm not sure that it would get better by way of getting different aromas, because I honestly think it's kind of delightful right now. And it's like the freshness is what's great, but I do think you could probably put this down for 3-5 years, and I don't think it would like fall apart. I think it would probably be in great shape, and maybe it would be remarkable. But yeah, you could age it.
Agreed. I think that's an excellent call, right? Like we got the structural backbone of medium plus acid, right? And then decent amount of tannin, medium. So we got a decent backbone. On top of that, we got medium plus concentration and then medium complexity here. So there's enough backbone, strong enough backbone, enough concentration here that if some of that were to turn into non-fruit flavors and aromas and turn into tertiary, it would add more complexity. And that is one thing that we call it medium, not medium plus, right? So it will push the complexity of the wine into medium plus territory, making the wine even more squarely in very good, or possibly pushing towards outstanding, right? But like what Charles is saying, the beauty of this wine to me is its freshness. Like to me, what is delicious about this wine is how much it's just brimming out of the glass with a just kind of youthfulness, freshness, and just joy of consumption right now. Where if you added a bunch of like non-fruit things on top of this, would that necessarily make it more delicious? I'm not convinced. I think it would be cool to see what happens, right? Just because it can, but am I convinced? Am I like fully convinced that that would make the wine better? I'm not. So to Charles' call, I'll call exactly what Charles called. I say this wine will have no problem. I don't think it's going to fall apart anytime within now and the next 5 years. So I say drink it now, drink it deliciously right now. But if you're only a couple bottles down, come back and maybe check back in 3 years to see where it's going, see if you like it. But enjoy it for over the next 5 years. You would have no problem with that, is what I would call this. Excellent. 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 Good job, everyone.
This wine definitely grew on me. This is like when I had my first sip of this wine hours ago, it was good. Like
Yeah.
it's real, like it's kind of like Doritos. You're like, I'll have like 3 Doritos. Then you're like, okay, 77 Doritos, and now the bag is gone. It's kind of like that for me. I'm like, man, I could just destroy this bottle of wine and it'd be no trouble whatsoever.
I know. The first bottle, the sample bottle that my rep came in, I mean, like we were also just kind of hanging out. He's like, dude, you think about doing island box wine? Like, you should try this one. And we had like 8 other wines to try, but I just kept going back to this one. Yeah, dude, let's taste a little more of that. Let's taste it. Like, it's so good. And again, like, I mean, we talked about a lot of different things, right? Like the herbs, the structure. But at the very core of it, it is just delicious. Like I just want to keep drinking, which is exactly what's beautiful about this wine. So,
and by the way, every time I drink it, the tannin is hitting me like a little bit more. It's still like, it's like such a delicate tannin, but it's like, it's persistent, and it's kind of like scrubbing my mouth very gently. It's like 600 grit sandpaper, but like with emphasis.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing, right? Like, let's be real. We're going into summertime. We're not going to be drinking a lot of red wine. But if you are going to drink red wine in the summertime, have some meals that has that like protein rich, like, meat heavy. Like, this is a kind of wine, right? It's got that tannin to match up to all that protein, but it's got the brightness. It's not big. Like, we're not going to drink, like, we're not drinking some heavy, we're not drinking Zinfandel, in the middle of summertime. Like, that's not the kind of wine I want to drink. But if you're going to drink red wine in the summertime, like, this is it. Put a little chill on this thing. It's got all the body, all the structure to match up to a heavy meal. Or if you just want to drink it as well on its own. I think this drinks beautifully on its own. So
Actually, that would be the question that I have is like, this as it's gotten back to room temperature has gotten better. And so like when we first opened it, I like everything, all the notes you just made, Charles, we had the exact same experience. It's
Floral
like,
on the front.
floral at the front, and like the I'm wondering, like, to suggest that we should have refrigerated it. I wonder, is that like the right idea, or for an hour? Should it only have been 20 minutes? I think that's a really interesting question, because I felt like as this bottle is opened and gotten warmer, it's so much more complex, so much more fun. It's like it's more fun. So I guess like if it were refrigerated, like, okay, I'll just drink it. It tastes fine. It's a little like, it's funky on the first sip and then fine. And then now it's just really fun.
Yeah, so that first bottle that I was telling you about that I drank with my rep, we started at like a 55-degree. It was actually a little bit colder than that because he had a lot of white wines in his bottle. So I drank it over that time. And quite frankly, my favorite sip of that range was actually like about half an hour in. from when he brought the bottle out of his bag. So it was too cold when he went the first sip that he poured, and about half an hour later, it started getting really warm. So it was almost at like a fridge temperature and pulled out for half an hour, which is about the same time as what we could like put it in the fridge for about 20 to 30 minutes, obviously depending on the fridge temperature. So yeah, maybe 40 minutes is too long, maybe 20-30 minutes is right. But I actually like the little chill of the wine as opposed to later in the wine. It also may be because I was tasting it through that, because I was kind of noticing it along the way. The wine seemed a little more hot towards the end, like when it got to full room temperature, as opposed to when we're in the about half an hour chill zone. I got a lot more of the actual aromas and all that. But yeah, it could have been that bottle that I was having. But we were also, again, tasting 8 different bottles at that time. So it could have been affecting me in a different way. So we're sure.
I've been drinking this thing at 72 degrees the entire time. It has 0 chill. Much like myself, it's got no chill. And it's delightful.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you guys like. Did everybody like this one, by the way? Did anybody not like this one? Just out of curiosity. So I was thinking, this wine would be so fucking mean to put on a blind taste exam. Because yeah, I'd be like, where do I go? Do I go Sicily here? Do I go Southern Rhone here? Like, it is just like, it's almost like it has a little influence from each places, but it's not quite its own thing. The only thing that really makes it pop is that orange juice, right? Like the Rhone wines will not have that orange juice. They will have a lot more Gary. They will actually have a lot more base note, be deeper. So which takes me to Sicily. Then what is it going to be? It's like an Etna Rosso, but it doesn't have that volcanic minerality here, right? It has that little bit like the slaty wetness, not that like dark black sand or black rock, kind of a dust kind of thing that you find in a volcanic rock. So yes, it can only be Corsican, and this is kind of how you learn, right? Like as you taste these different things and make sensory memories, you can kind of tell, okay, all right, that's not volcanic. That's not what I know as volcanic. So it can't be Sicily. So where's are we? It's clearly kind of a Mediterranean vibe. Where's can we go? But it's also the Garrigue factor. It's not like that. It's got that, but it doesn't have the orange thing. So that of course can. So, but yeah, it'd be a very mean wine to have it on a blind taste exam. It will make you split into all kinds of directions. All right. Let's play everybody's favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? Corsica, not all that well known. Fornelli is a reputable producer on Corsica. Small-ish. I mean, they farm 25 hectares. So some of that. Yeah, what do you think? Let's see, 26, 23, 26, 25, 29, 26, 31, 30, 35, 28, 29. And the winner is Mr. Phil Dahan. This would be $23 on a retail shelf. I mean,
That's an amazing deal.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like for $23, what we call very good with a 5-year aging potential, like with the layers and complexity, but also the immediate drinkability. It's to me, it's no brainer. No brainer. So there you go. Now you all know.
And can I ask a question about tannins?
Yeah.
So I get that like time on the skins tells you like how much tannin will be in the wine, but you know, we talked about this wine and how it has like really fine grain tannin, which I get, and we've had other wines with like really fine grain tannin, as opposed to like if you drink a young Barolo, it's like rip your gums out tannin. Like what determines that? Is it like the grape? Is it the method? It's the aging? Is it all of those things? Like what develops like the characteristics of the tannin in the wine?
What an incredibly nerdy question, and I fucking love that you asked. All of the above. So one, grape variety, absolutely. So just genetically, certain varieties are much more tannic than others. Nebbiolo, for example, very high in tannin. Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon family, all the Cabernet family, high in tannin. So yeah, so there's a genetics that play into that. So one, variety. Two, production method, right? It can either be in terms of a maturation length, so skin contact time versus longer skin contact versus shorter skin contact time, that also determines it. But more than the skin itself, honestly, a lot of times it's also the vine inclusion. So if it's a whole cluster, if the actual, or if these stems, or if the berries are picked off the stems and then just the berries themselves got fermented, versus if there's stems included during fermentation, that also plays a role in the amount of tannin that goes in there. And then also the production method in terms of when do you pop, like when do you press the berries. So is it foot stopped from the very beginning? Versus later on it's just pressed off in a pneumatic press gently, like all those things matter. You know, for example, carbonic maceration, right? It is with the whole bunches, it's got stem inclusion, yet it is oftentimes lower in tannin because they don't pop the berries until the very last minute, you know? So things like that. So it's not like a simple answer of this and that. It's all of the above.
But aging also mellows out the tannins, right?
Yes. So as the wine ages, the tannin will bind with oftentimes the anthocyanin, which is a color compound, another polyphenolic compound, and they'll precipitate out. So oftentimes when you see old bottles of particularly red wines laying on the side, you'll see these like pigments of all this, basically the sediments that come out. That's tannin binding with anthocyanin and precipitating out of the wine. And that's part of the reason also, if you, like when we do the visual test, like when we tilt at 45 degrees and get the color, when you see that variation of color from the deepest core to the ridge, and then the ridge starts to lose color and it becomes very clear, like almost water-like, that's usually a sign that the wine has seen some type of aging. Some of that has taken place, the tannin and the anthocyanin precipitation has taken place. What a nerdy question again. Love it. Any other questions?
I have a question. So, earlier I think it was Liz who was asking about the temperature. How do you know, this might be a dumb question, but how do you know how much of the change over the time that we've been drinking it has happened because of the temperature variation, you know, it warming up as we've had it out of the fridge, and how much of it is because it's been exposed to air? Like we've had it open all this time and all this. How can you tell the difference? Like I want it open longer, but I still want it kind of chilled, or I want it open a shorter amount of time, but less.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an excellent question. And then there's no, unless I'm doing like a really like, you know, dedicated testing of, right? I'm only going to pull it out, no oxygen exposure, and then serve one at 55 and one at like 65 and see if that makes a difference. Or you know, keep it exactly the same, but one at oxygen, one without. Without that, like, yeah, there's really no way of knowing. I guess my best answer is just to feel the vibe, you know.
What do you think about this particular wine? Is more of it from it being open or the temperature?
Yeah, so oftentimes the wines that are like earlier, I use that term crunch-ish or crunch, almost crunchy. I I find a lot of crunchy and almost crunchy wines to benefit from chill factor or having a little chill on it. So that's why I was like recommending a chill on this thing. But oftentimes the more like how more expressive the wine becomes, or how complex the wine becomes, that's oftentimes a function of oxygen exposure as well. So it's hard for me to say yes. Thank you for calling me on it. You're right. It's more of a guess as a vibe. It's just like, yeah, I do think this wine definitely opens up more over there, like most wines. But because of that crunch factor, because of that lifted elegance in the wine, that little bit of chill, I think it makes it even more delightful. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So like in terms of aging, I've aged wines before and had the fruit, like the red fruit, get sort of like more stewed, more dried, more raisiny. And then I've had the fruit fall off, like the fruit sort of falls away. Is there like a time scale for that where it's like you expect more raisiny stewed fruits and then eventually the fruit falls off, or does it ever just sort of fall off?
Changes. Yeah, it all depends on the grape. It all depends on the wine. Like for example, like Chenin, like has this weird ability to like move, and it's not just Chenin. Actually, a lot of wines, they go through this weird move in and out. Like they go through that like stewed raisiny thing, then it almost comes back out as like fresh but like really ripe fruit again. But before it comes back down, so like it's not just like a linear kind of digression or progression. It just kind of moves at its own pace, and that all really depends on grape variety as well as the wine, and also the producer. Like, yeah, it is one of the big mysteries. Like, how do we exactly gauge when the wine is perfectly at the optimal aging is a really hard thing. I mean, honestly, anybody who tells you, whether it's a sommelier or even a producers, that like this wine will be perfect in 10 years. It's just a guessing game. Like they don't know. Like nobody knows. Nobody knows. So yeah. Any other questions? So it's because you guys say most of you have not had Corsican wine before. This is not typical Corsican wine. Most Corsican wines are not this kind of like reds, I should say, light and lifted like this. It's much heavier, much riper, much more extracted. So if you don't think you're going to go out there and look for a Corsican wine in the next wine shop or next event, but like I'm going to order a Corsican wine, like it may be a very different experience. But things like those do exist, so you just have to go out there and look for them. So.
Well, actually, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think you said it at the beginning, but now that we've kind of gone through this, and now I've texted Dad at the very beginning, and I was like, "This is a fine wine, but I'm not going to order it." And then now I'm like, "I'm definitely ordering this." So I've changed my mind in the hours that we put together. But I guess like the question is like, as you were comparing this wine with other wines, like what were you encountering? Like as you were saying, like I kept coming back to this wine. What was the note that you were finding or whatever in the Corsican wine that
Also, before I get to that, my answer, I have a question for you. What changed within that 1 hour? What took you from I'm not ordering this wine to I am ordering this wine?
Well, Todd, who's the lady? What's your name? I don't know if we've met. Andrea. Your question, I was just coming back from the bathroom, and Kayla, this is my friend Kayla, everybody. Lives in Water Beach. This is one of my people. I was just coming back, she just asked the question, like, what is it? Is it oxidation or is it like yeah, and the thing is, that's what I chilled the wine, and I was like, was it the fact that like the only thing I got from it as floral when we first opened it, because I had been chilling it, And then now as it's getting more, temperature, like, is that what's happening? Or is it that it's just been open longer and and I opened it an hour before, so now it's been open, 2 hours and 15 minutes. And so maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but like we were finding it to evolve throughout the drink. And I think that was great. Cause if I had to choose in the first half hour, if we had all, like, if I was at a table and we all had one glass, I would never drink this wine again. Do you know what I mean?
I had the first sip and I was like, I would drink this whole bottle.
So there you
But
go.
in a lot of ways, in a completely different bottle. I mean, every sip has been different, but
Yeah.
I've liked every stage of it.
Yeah. If
But-
it
Well,
was,
tell you, I mean, maybe to your point, maybe this is a decanting wine. And,
Yeah.
I'm learning that too myself because I didn't chill mine. Mine's been a room temperature, like Charles was saying. It's been the same temperature the whole time, but it is noticeably more expressive right now. in my
really?
glass.
Okay. So it's not the temperature, it's more the time then.
Well, temperature is never about like particularly chilling it down. It's not necessarily about making it more expressive. It's just that it's just there. Like I said,
Well,
it's
dull-
with a
it hides flavors.
It
doesn't
it dulls the wine a little bit, but and that's true of white wine as well. And this is part of the reason why I actually, when I'm tasting wine to decide to put on a wine list or to do a pairing or not, even champagne, I like tasting white wines at room temperature because it's a lot harder to hide any fault or any, like it's a lot easier to see what's going on with the wine at a room temperature than a chill temperature.
Yeah.
But with that chill factor comes a lot more kind of this kind of refreshing, the joy, the pleasure of drinking kind of increases.
That's
So it's
right.
like in one way you're giving up maybe some of that expression, but in another way you're increasing the refreshing nature of it. And to me, that's why I always say the wines that are kind of crunchy or almost crunchy, I like putting little chill in, like Beaujolais, because it's all about really the immediate joy of drinking and just like the pleasure, how we feel. So by putting a little chill on it, it gives that little bit even more a boost to that wine, which I think does wine service. But yes, in terms of muting the aromas and flavors, yes, it does happen. If you chill it down, you're going to mute it a little bit. But also, like I'm not talking about like chilling it all the way down to to the white wine temperature. We're talking about just a slight chill on the wine, just to boost up that. And also as the wine, like as you were saying, as the wine warms up, that you can kind of experience that evolution as well, as opposed to if you start at the room temperature, it's a lot harder to like go back to chill it. Anyways.
Honestly, I just had this moment where I was thinking about a dinner that I had with Charles and our friends, and we ordered a bottle of wine and it went all around to everybody, and we had one glass, and that would have been it. Like,
Yeah.
how sad if this had been a wine that
Yeah.
had been around a table and like that would have been the end of it.
But
There's
now
more to
But
it.
now because of this conversation and because your years of training in Six Wine Club, now that if you find a glass of wine and you find it muted, and especially if it's a little chill, then now you know to either bring it up to temperature or just let it sit for a little bit, see if anything changes. Because most people will not know that. They will just see that particular moment in time of that wine's life to be the full expression of that wine. But now you know, so if you're like, you know what, I think we should let this wine chill for a little bit. Maybe let's grab another bottle, so something easy to pound. That's going to be fun and delicious to just pound now while this wine sits.
Tell me about the label.
I just have a funny question. I've never seen a label that said no weed killer on it.
Wait, say that one more time.
The label says no weed killer.
No weed killer. I didn't even see that.
Weed.
I've never seen a label like that.
I think they just mean no herbicides. Yeah.
Right. Todd noticed that too when we opened it. He was like, "Oh, no weed killer." Okay.
I like that. No weed killer. All right. Excellent. Also, sorry, Liz, you asked me a question. Sorry, then I asked you a question and then I never answered the question. What was the question?
You answered it in the
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
Okay.
How to kind of control that temperature oxidation.
Yeah, the temperature, like time, like
Yeah.
time open thing. That was the.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions, folks? I actually have a question for Kirsten. As somebody who likes island wines, oftentimes because they're grown on volcanic soil. This is not grown on volcanic soil. This is on slate, but it is on an island, Mediterranean. Do you still like this wine? I mean, how do you feel about this wine versus, let's say, like, Etna Rosso or some of the other volcanic wines that you like, right? So then the question becomes, is it volcanic? Is it the Mediterranean climate? Like, well, what is it?
I think it's a good question. I just started drinking it because I was at a dinner and I just got back and it's my first time. So I do really like it. I think I like a volcanic better. But I
very
like
similar vibe though, right? Like it's got like a very similar Sicilian vibe here, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I love a
Okay.
Etna Robe. Yeah, no, I like it, but I think it does have a different there's it's not it doesn't have that same what the volcanic soil gives you.
Dark, dusty, like black rock kind of dustiness, the rockiness. Yeah. It's definitely not volcanic, like for sure. Like you smell this, you're like, this is not volcanic wine, but just because it's similar kind of like almost a little salty, high acid.
I was just gonna ask because I missed the tasting. I was like, did we talk about salinity? Because it does have, I like the saltiness of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's got the salinity, which is all the Mediterranean island thing that all have in common, right?
I guess I'm just to live on a Mediterranean island. I think that seems to be like be my place.
There you go. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious if you're noticing that difference. Okay. Any other questions? Did anybody pair this with anything? Did anything work? Did anything not work? Did anything clash?
We did a.
I have
we
a
did like
public. Go. Who's talking?
Oh, sorry, go Liz. We did a turkey casserole with like cranberry sauce. It was like perfect with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. To me, this is like a perfect Thanksgiving. Like I'll pound the shit out of this wine at a Thanksgiving table.
Yeah, we could see that for sure. Cause like the cranberry in it was just like, I wonder, we were thinking like, what would happen if we had done another flavor profile? All right, so public service announcement. There's an amazing, super simple turkey burger recipe on the New York Times. It's by a guy who like cooks for I'd be curious. But it's like just a turkey burger, and we did a little slaw on top of it, and then we made sweet potato fries on the side that had some cinnamon and spice. And so sort of like I tried to get at the.
We didn't do cranberry, but the slaw, we ended up going with like a chopped spinach, labna, lemon, garlic slaw, and that tang, I think, played into that cranberry just right. Like different, but same flavor profile.
Yeah.
It was really very mild, but really good.
Pretty darn good.
Yeah. I mean, did you put any like herbs in does a turkey burger recipe call for like herbs? Does it call for like
turkey burger recipe? Okay, listen, take
marjoram?
2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Mix everything together and then mix it into the turkey, do like a salting and then put it into 4 burgers. It's unbelievable.
So a little bit of
It's-
spice, a little bit of fat, but nothing that like
Yeah.
everything was well balanced, kind of like the wine. Nothing was over.
It was
Yeah, okay.
so good. It was really, really good. And then this,
Yeah.
and then it's
Sweet potato.
served with a slaw and pickles.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it, got it.
So good, you guys.
I have a feeling that like some of the, like even if you had some like sage or some herbs in there, you probably play well with this.
Yeah,
'Cause,
we were fine. We like when you said about the rosemary, we were sort of like, what is that thing that we're
Yeah, there's
missing?
a
Like
funk that's
there is like
on
an
the
herbal
level, yeah.
that
Yeah.
could come out through food and made this wine even more interesting. I agree. Great.
Sorry, I just saw Julie's comment. Excellent. By the way, I am planning on coming back up to DC on Friday. And people are already like, "Are you sure?" Like there's because I guess the DC is the whole fucking military parade that's about to fucking go down as it is. Like, you sure this is the weekend you want to come up? But yeah. Yeah. It's I've been seeing on Instagram that like a video footage of people on like Rossola and whatever by the railroad tracks, like taking a video, be like, this is what I'm waking up to, and it's like just train, like the trailers of train, just full of tanks and different like military vehicles loaded up, being brought back. It's like Jesus Christ. Like, huh? All right. It's like, may not be the safest time to come to DC right now.
I drove through, I don't know why, Waze took me today. I was coming back in from Arlington and it literally told me to go down Constitution Avenue. And I was like, why is it taking me this way? And I got part of the way down and it was completely barricaded off and had to go around. But there is so much fencing. Like every monument, is like with the big, like the fencing they had like after January 6th. Remember that? Like
Yeah.
big, tall fencing? It is everywhere. Yeah. And all the telephone poles have flags on them. So they have the US flag, the DC flag, and the Army flag. But I was surprised to see the DC flag on there because, like, I don't know if we authorize that as a city and Trump doesn't
Yeah.
really like us. So I don't know. But all three flags are on all the like telephone poles all the way down Constitution. And then they have the stanchions or whatever those stanchions are called with. And there's like a banner all the way down Constitution that says like Army 250 and yeah, it's crazy. And the traffic I spent a lot of time in my car today going to and from various places and it's taking like twice as long to get everywhere. We just need to stay over in our little corner of Northeast. We'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was just like, and just don't like, I mean, not that you would be anywhere near downtown anyway, because why? But like, just don't go anywhere near downtown. Like,
I actually did get telework today as a federal employee because my office is inaccessible. So like that was good.
What?
Wait,
You're still a federal employee. That's like good news.
we're all shocked, Liz. We're all shocked.
Wait, where is this? I haven't even looked into. Where is this parade happening?
Down Constitution.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just super downtown. Like, yeah, down Constitution.
Down Constitution? From where to where?
I think
That's
it's
probably from
I
the
think it's-
Capitol to the.
I think it's from the start of Constitution to the Capitol.
Jesus Christ. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the whole point is no one goes to the military parade. You go, like, there's going to be like the No Kings protests all over the country to like draw attention away from it. And in DC, there's going to be like a big party in Anacostia that's just supposed to be like, go have fun and don't bring any attention to this like nonsense parade. So
Wow. And then it's happening when on Sunday?
Saturday, I think, isn't it?
Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well shit.
Are you flying? Are you driving?
Yeah, I am flying. Oh, check
But-
this out. This is actually pretty sweet.
They're shutting down, I think they're shutting down the airport
Well,
for the
they are
first time.
On
on
Sunday.
Saturday.
Right? On Saturday? Well, I'm flying in on Friday. So which is
You're flying on Friday and flying on Sunday?
No, I'm actually staying all through the week until next week, and then I fly out on Saturday, the week after, to Korea. Yeah.
You're very busy.
But yeah, so check this out. This may give Julia even more anxiety, but I bought my airplane tickets today, Julia, for my flight leaving on Friday. And it's from Friday from here to DC, then a week later from DC to Korea, then from Korea straight back to Colombia, like
Oh
3
yeah,
weeks
that
later.
direct flight from Seoul to Colombia.
Not direct. It goes from Dallas to the Columbia side. I'm not going back to DC. But yeah, I booked all of that today. But for some reason, right now on American Air, that whole flight, the 3 legs of trip was 80,000 points.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? See, this is what I'm telling you. Either buy tickets either 2 months before or within the last 2 weeks. Anything in between is fucking terrible. So
Yeah, you are giving me hives though. Like that.
But yeah,
So
I mean,
did you book the points? Did you buy the points or did you have the points?
I had points.
There's a lot of times when you can buy points, you can like pay $300 and buy 50,000 points.
Yeah.
And then you like are most of the way to a huge ticket for nothing.
Yeah.
So
No,
you should like push your luck even more. Like don't even have points, just get all the way to the end and be like, I'm just gonna buy 55,000 points for $319 and then add like $600 and now I've got like a $7,000 plane ticket.
Just raw dog it, Yeah, no, it worked out this time. It doesn't work out all the time, but this time it worked out beautifully.
By the way, I just ate dinner with this wine and it worked really well. My parents dropped off some random thing they made. It's like pork in like a, I don't know, kind of like a brothy sauce. It has like fennel seeds in it with chickpeas and Swiss chard. And it's pretty awesome actually with the wine.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I almost thought, I was like, oh, is this like Chinese 5-spice? My dad's like, no, it's a ton of fennel seed. I was like, oh, interesting. It's like,
all right. I mean, pork with this would be fennel would be great. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but it's got that herby, like the pork is rich. It's got the herby thing, the chickpeas. It's pretty nice. Like this is a great wine with food or not food. I've done it both ways.
Good. Also, I realized.